Hello guys, welcome back to another video on the Shadows Forecast for the channel. Sorry it's been a few days since I've uploaded. Again, I'm trying my best to do daily uploads. In today's video, we're going over the potential for a major, big time storm system coming up in the next couple of days that could pose the threat of a major severe weather outbreak in portions of anywhere from the eastern half of Texas all the way back to portions of Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, I think even parts of Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, and even Alabama. And there's going to be another severe weather threat, the same one, but it will be extended into the southeast coastline that could include the areas all the way up towards close to New York, but right around the Virginia coastline, the North Carolina coastline, the South Carolina coastline, Georgia coastline, and northwestern or northern Florida. But yeah, so first we're going to do radar and satellite, and then we will get into the future radar and severe weather outlooks that have been issued by the Storm Prediction Center. So right now we're just dealing with some a little storm system that just went through portions of the northeast that is moving off into the Quebec area and New Brunswick, Canada. That brought some snow and rain showers in portions of Maine. I don't think they got a whole ton of accumulation. All I know is that the general idea was around 3 to 5 inches. That system is bringing a decent, actually, is this lake effect actually? Hold on. So a lot of cold air is spilling, which is turning all these showers over to snow as the cold air continues to overlap. It looks like a pretty decent heavy banding moving through off the coastline in the mid-Atlantic. It looks almost like a squall line, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's very heavy snow, but it could be steadier snow. There's also some lake enhancement going on across the Great Lakes region. Sorry about that glitching. Also some snow showers. Again, this is all convection. These snow showers are coming off the lakes. This is St. Cruz right in the middle of it. Right now in portions of New York, you're getting some snow banding. I don't think it's heavy stuff. I think it's pretty light stuff, but northwest wind. Snow starting to move out of Maine. They've got a decent few inches of accumulation anyways. Here's our next storm system already starting to develop. These clouds here you're seeing is the Pacific jet stream that's continuing to rush in your atmospheric river with lots of moisture. We got some area of low pressure over here towards Arizona that is starting to spin up some rain showers and snow showers. Another area of low pressure back to portions of Seattle that's dragging some rain showers. And then, yeah, that's really that. And rain showers off the coastline of Tampa and the western half of Florida. But yeah, so this is today's outlook for severe weather. They did upgrade this marginal risk of severe weather to a slight risk of severe weather as well. So there's currently this marginal risk of severe weather is pretty, very small portions of northeastern Texas and portions of central and north central, or central and western portions of Oklahoma. There's this little tiny spot of a slight risk of severe weather that has been issued for portions of northeastern Texas and western Oklahoma. The tornado risk is 5%, so this is actually upgraded. So actually, I don't think we'll be seeing any strong tornadoes, but there's definitely a elevated risk of tornadoes in this area. I mean, I wouldn't rule out, a strong tornado. I mean, I would definitely rule out a strong tornado, but it's pretty localized area of tornado concern. I mean, it's a very low chance in my opinion, but it is there. So again, there's potential for, a tornado or two in this area. But really, the main focus will be portions of western Oklahoma and northeastern parts of Texas. There's also a wind threat, which is lower, 5% risk. It basically goes around the same area. This will be issued for portions of western Oklahoma and northeastern Texas. There's also a hail risk. This one's a little bit elevated. Again, same area as the tornado risk, almost. But 15% risk of hail, and there's that goes right basically the bullseye between the borders of both northeastern Texas and western Oklahoma. But overall, it's a very low threat in my opinion. But there is a chance that you see some stronger thunderstorms, potentially even severe thunderstorms that could produce, potentially a tornado, potentially some big damaging gusty winds, and maybe even some small to large hail. But it's a pretty low overall thing in my opinion, but I still wouldn't rule out the idea of, a tornado or anything like that. And this is for Monday. We have a slight risk of severe that is for portions of far southeastern parts of Kansas, pretty much the entire or at least central and north central and central and southern portions of Oklahoma and northern Texas. And the marginal weather does extend all the way back to portions of almost southeastern portions of Kansas. It does clip a little bit of Missouri, but I don't think it's a whole. I think it's a very little small area. This area pretty much covers areas in northern Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. The tornado risk is the lowest of them all. A 2% risk of tornadoes is possible. That means maybe a brief isolated tornado is possible. The wind risk is a little bit higher, so 15% risk of wind this is more of a slight risk, and an elevated risk of damaging winds that can be seen from the extreme southeastern parts of Kansas, pretty much the central, northern and southern Oklahoma and northern Texas, but really you can see any tornadoes. You can see any wind or tornado in pretty much the exact same area almost. That covers pretty much the same exact area. There's also an elevated risk of hail, but really the main areas of concern would be southeastern Kansas, Oklahoma, and portions of northern Texas. That is for tornadoes, wind, and hail. There's another risk. This is for, I believe, Monday or Tuesday as well. There's a marginal risk of severe weather that extends from about the southeastern half of Kansas, southwestern Missouri, northwestern parts of Arkansas, and the central and north central parts of Texas. And this is just your marginal risk of severe weather. There's no severe specifics, but the newest models have come in, so hopefully that'll help determine whether or not. Well, it's obviously this is a few days, 1 or 2 days away, so this could definitely change. We'll start to see hazards probably come in by tomorrow. This is when things get interesting. So this is probably the most concerning of them all. Depending on how models line up, there could even be a moderate risk of severe weather. We'll have to take a look at the models to see exactly where that would line up. But the enhanced risk, well, you can really see any severe thunderstorms in this risk. Remember, the slight risk goes out quite a ways in this yellow shaded area. So southern Missouri, southern Indiana, southern Illinois, western portions of Kentucky, western Tennessee, pretty much the entire state of Alabama, the full state of Louisiana, pretty much the entire state of, that was Mississippi, pretty much the entire state of Louisiana except for far southeastern parts of Louisiana and western Texas, and then the 30% risk is your enhanced risk of severe weather. This does go from about the southeastern half of Missouri, western portions of Tennessee, northwestern parts, and central parts of Mississippi, a small sliver but extreme western parts of Alabama, and northern parts of Louisiana. And it doesn't stop there. We also have a 15% risk of severe weather. That is your slight risk of severe weather that extended, and this has been cut down a little bit due to probably getting closer range models, bringing in new data. But this slight risk of severe weather would be, I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's either Wednesday or Thursday. Yeah, this is Wednesday into Thursday. So your 15, again, this risk would be seen from about the extreme southeastern half of Georgia, both the coastlines of South Carolina, and pretty much the entire state of North Carolina, except for western North Carolina, and pretty much the entire state of Virginia, except for western Virginia. This also does get extended all the way into the mid-Atlantic coastlines in Maryland and Delaware. Alright, so let's get into the specifics. So first we'll go over this storm, and obviously we'll go out into the future a little bit with these models. But first I want to talk about the Arctic blast happening in the Northeast. So I want to go over the temperatures. So the big story really is the Northeast and the upper plains tonight and into the later morning hours today. So there's going to be this Arctic blast that sets in for this upcoming Sunday and Monday. The most coldest of them all will be Monday, and it'll pretty much go through the entire day on Tuesday. But Monday morning, the early hours on Monday, the bulk of this Arctic blast will be in portions of the interior northeast of New England. It probably won't get much farther south than probably portions of Massachusetts. but it does look like a significant Arctic blast by all means. And then our next system pulls in, and that's going to rush those temperatures back up. I just want to give you a general idea. Here is a European model. Again, Arctic blast sets in Monday morning into Monday afternoon at least, and it looks like we could sink below zero in pretty much the entire New England area. This would be northeastern New York, pretty much the entire state of Vermont and New Hampshire, and the entire state of Maine, and it's going to get extended all the way into portions of northern Massachusetts. Alright, that's besides the point, but Arctic blast does set in for the northeast and the upper plains in the next 24 to 48 hours, so definitely make sure to bundle up for that, because it looks like it's going to be cold. And those wind chill values will go even colder, probably with those, I assume there would be some gusty winds in behind this area of low pressure back to the New Brunswick area that would usher in colder air. I'm just assuming that. I don't know the actual specifics, but it does look like cold air will filter in. We can take a look at the winds. So yeah, some fairly decently gusty winds out there. I mean, nothing that looks, extreme, but there could be some gusty winds throughout pretty much the entire northeastern New England throughout the day today behind this cold front. And again, this is all due to high pressure and low pressure. High pressure gradients indicate the stronger winds, and it looks like it'd be fairly, gusty, between like 5 and 15 miles per hour, I would assume. Not much more than that. Maybe the mountains, but also the lake enhancement would continue because we have some pretty decently fairly gusty winds in Lake Erie. Back to the main storm. So I don't see anything major happening behind this storm. I think it's just going to be a few too many, a few to, as much as a few more storm systems. But this one by far looks the most significant. So this is the latest run by the GFS model. So it does look like we're going to get a little of a, this area of pressure that I was talking about that is forming in back through portions of Arizona. This is going to spark the threat for severe weather, and it's mostly due to that negatively tilted trough that you're seeing there. So it looks like, again, there's going to be, a nice little line of storms that sets up through the afternoon hours today and the evening hours. There's going to be a little line of thunderstorms that set up, and again, for tornado risk, you'd be looking for any tornadoes that would be kind of, you've seen that line of thunderstorms where it kind of looks like this. You have like a little rotation in one of these cells here. That moves through, it kind of fizzles out, that's why they have, and then there's a marginal risk of weather that has been issued for Monday and Tuesday. This is your area of low pressure here with a few embedded thunderstorms possible, but the main threat comes Tuesday into Wednesday. So we get a little, very nice line of thunderstorms setting up from portions of northeastern Texas. It pretty much lines up with the borders of both Kansas and Missouri and Oklahoma and Arkansas. And then throughout the morning hours, we will be live for this, by the way. I think this will be a fairly significant severe weather threat. But if the models keep on downtrending, or they somehow continue to downtrend this event, I mean, I don't really want to be live for that, because I'm not going to be live for something that's, I'm going to be live for several hours for nothing to happen like the last time I did this. But it does look like this will be a fairly severe, significant severe weather threat. So we get a nice little area of low pressure setting up. It's not a very strong area of low pressure, but you can tell it's pretty strong because it's dragging engulfable moisture from the Gulf of Mexico, and it's setting up a cluster of thunderstorms. And some of these might even get into portions of, upper state Missouri and back to portions of potentially even Minnesota, but I don't see it getting up as far as there. But anything pretty much north of northern Missouri, you're probably talking about just heavy rain, because I'm assuming the instability isn't too great up there. So Tuesday, this line of thunderstorms continues, and I would not rule out the idea of a derecho here. Just remember, the idea of a derecho is you have to get like severe weather. I think it's like 58 mile per hour winds in it for a certain amount of time for like 200 miles. I think it's a possibility here. I just don't know if it's going to happen. It's always a possibility when you get a nice line of thunderstorm setting up like this. And the latest trends have showed this bow echoing formation, which is an indication of damaging winds within the thunderstorms. But this is through Tuesday. It continues on, and this line really stays together. But really, the bulk of this, I think, is going to be between central, west. I think it's really going to start. I don't have an exact timing here, but I assume it's in the afternoon, the early afternoon to mid-afternoon hours. through portions of Arkansas, Louisiana, and this will continue to move on through Mississippi, then Alabama and Georgia. And I would assume the farther it goes to the east, the less intense it's going to get, as you can see here. But also, this does raise the concern for more elevated tornado risk in portions of southeast, because remember, this line of thunderstorms here looks to be more like a linear line of storms, which if we had some thunderstorms that did develop ahead of this line, I'd say there's more of a threat of tornadoes. But when you get something like this, it's more of a damaging wind threat. But when I see more scattered thunderstorms like it's showing here, that kind of separate themselves, this definitely elevates the tornado risk. And this would be Wednesday, and then it becomes even more scattered. So I wouldn't say a wind threat, but definitely a tornado threat. And then this goes up to the northeast. And I do think if this squall line stays together all the way up to the northeast, we could have a windstorm in the northeast. And the only way this would possibly happen is, again, there's still the low-level jet stream, right? But you just don't have the heavy rain to push those winds down to the surface. We call it mixing down to the surface. So what the rain does, if it's heavy enough, it's basically like a teleportation system, where there's winds high above your head, like way up in the atmosphere, and you get these heavy rains. And with the rain coming down fast and heavy at times, it drags those winds down to the surface. And if we can have this happen, there's a potential we get some very least gusty winds to potentially stronger winds. I mean, right now it doesn't look overly significant, but I would expect the extreme southern coastlines of Maine, into portions of Connecticut and Rhode Island, portions of Massachusetts, and up and down the East Coast, right along the coastline would be your best chance. I don't want to put out numbers right now, but that would be your best chance, in my opinion, right now, to see any stronger to potentially damaging wind gusts. I don't think we're going to see any, something out of the ordinary, like 60 to 70 mile per hour wind gusts like we've seen in the past. But I definitely think there's a chance for at least 35 mile per hour wind gusts or higher. So definitely gusty winds. I mean, it very well could lead to isolated power outages, but there's not really anything on the trees, so, most of the leaves are off the trees, I would think, by now. So I don't think it would be as big of a power outage threat. At that point, 35 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts is more isolated threat. Once you get above 50 mile per hour wind gusts and you get closer to 60 mile per hour, the power outage threat becomes a little bit more isolated to scattered. And then once you go above that, you go from scattered to widespread. And if you're going above 65 miles per hour, which is very unlikely to happen right now, just based off the data that I'm seeing from these models, that's when you get into big problems. But I don't think that's going to happen with this storm unless if we do get this squall line to continue to stay together all the way up the eastern seaboard, because the only way you're getting those gusty winds to come down to the surface if you have the heavy rain. I mean, yes, there is yellows in this line of thunderstorms, but the squall line of heavier showers and downpours, the main line is all the way off the coastline of the southeast. It just doesn't get that far up north to be a major wind event. But you can't rule out the idea of some gustier winds out there. And then there might be an area of low pressure, depending on what things happen, that may develop right in the Gulf of Maine, depending on what things happen. It tries to develop it there, but it's not an overly strong. But what the European model has been doing is transferring its energy to both, kind of like what it's been doing this winter with winter storms across the northeast, transferring its energy to another area of low pressure off the coastline of the northeast. And then does look like a little strong area of low pressure, but after that, there's your next area of low pressure right there. That's what I was talking about. It's a little bit farther off to the east with this model, but it would bring in some colder air behind and potentially strengthening winds due to high pressure and low pressure, which could drag some decently gusty winds out there, potentially even stronger winds. I'm not going to rule out that, obviously. And then behind that, this goes out. I don't want to go out this far because nothing looks significant, honestly. Here's the European model again. Same area that I was talking about on the radar and satellite, Arizona in the ballpark of it. Tomorrow we get so the difference between the European model and the GFS model is the GFS model is actually a little bit more intense with this thunderstorm line, and it's also a little bit farther north than the European model. So but it does look like a very low chance of severe weather, but it does look like northeastern Texas and portions of Oklahoma would get in a little bit of a lower threat of severe weather. But the main threat definitely holds on and then that would be your Monday into Tuesday type deal for the marginal risk of whether these isolated thunderstorms. Then the main system starts to form, and then the Euro tornado wants to bring a very linear line and a very straight line of thunderstorms, but does kind of have that bow echo formation from about the Nebraska area all the way, I think that's Nebraska, no, that's Kansas, sorry, all the way through central and north central portions of Texas. And then the main threat really starts to develop. And the Euro tornado has been consistent and insistent of clusters of thunderstorms and individual cells ahead of the line, which if we have clusters and individual cells, there's more of a tornado threat. If you're talking about more of a linear line of storms, you're just going to, if there's any tornado threat, you're going to see more of the embedded tornadoes within the line. But that also depends on the wind directions. But it does show a cluster of storms through Tuesday, and it looks like a very strong line of thunderstorms with a cold front that kind of extends like this, and then a warm front that extends like I'm trying to draw kind of all the way out like this. So it's a very strong storm system, and it's a negatively tilted trough, which is going to create for those rotating winds. And it does look like Tuesday into Wednesday. It goes fast, I know. And then it becomes a very strong line of thunderstorms that heads off to the north and east. And then it continues to stay strong. So this will become more of a damaging wind threat. But let's see what the Euro tornado once it gets to the southeast coastline. Because, let me say this, I'll say that after, but, the southeast coastline, if it does more of the thing like the GFS model is indicating, more individual cells, again, the tornado threat would still be would be slightly elevated if, even if it's a linear line of storms, but if the thunderstorms are individual, there's still an elevated risk of tornadoes. That's when things become a little bit more concerning, because the thunderstorms have space to work with. And then what I was going to say, heavy snow is possible. If we go back here, it could start in portions of the Rockies and potentially upward portions of the upper plains, and then it really starts to strengthen, and we get some heavy snow on the backside. And pressure gradients like this definitely is the idea. I would not rule out the idea of a blizzard. And then back through, this extends, so on the backside of this, Kansas all the way back up through the Great Lakes region, including Minnesota. There could be a very heavy banding through northeastern Kansas, far eastern parts of Nebraska, I think, or Dakota, either one. Western portions of Iowa, southeastern parts of Minnesota, and the Great Lakes region. This could be this very tight snow banding with gusty winds embedded in this heavy banding, which could lead to blizzard conditions. I can definitely see that now. And this continues, and it could extend that snow with very strong winds on the backside of this, and then you've got that severe weather threat. The thing I'm noticing with the Euro model is it's still a linear line of storms, and I'm not seeing much separation within these storms, but obviously this is not like the shorter range models and the high resolution models that have all the different specifics with severe weather. But this, I can see that severe weather risk getting extended into portions of Virginia, definitely, and we're seeing that still. Heavy snow still happening through portions of the Great Lakes region all the way up through the upper plains, southeastern Minnesota, Iowa, and portions of northern Missouri on the backside of this storm system. And that snow continues, and that severe weather risk would definitely be more limited, because I think by now you're really losing that instability. But again, the Euro tornado wants to bring this line of heavier downpours all the way up the coastline, and if it does happen to be like that, and in this case scenario, and you get these heavier bandings up and down the coastline of Maine and up and down the East Coast, the wind threat is a little bit higher. And then there's potential, again, there's your individual area of pressure right there, and it will bring some polar air in behind it. And then things get more interesting behind that. I mean, it becomes a little, the storm systems behind this one don't look all that impressive at all. Now we're going to get into the severe weather specifics. Just due to this is going to be a longer video than usual, because I want to really get into the meat of this the severe weather threat. Alright, so we're going to go with the first severe weather threat, and then we'll go through the several more. So you're going to start seeing storms developing. I think it's in the afternoon and evening hours, like the evening hours. You're going to start seeing some storms firing off in portions of northern Texas, and it looks like a very nice, strong line of thunderstorms, which have individual cells, which definitely elevates the tornado risk without a doubt. When it gets into the area of tornadoes, this would kind of be, more of a wind threat than anything, and these thunderstorms don't look all that impressive either. It's just kind of a nice little line of thunderstorms developing. Through Monday morning, it really becomes impressive, and then it kind of dies off. But, I mean, if you see any of these individual cells ahead of it, like you're seeing in northern Texas around this time frame, I don't know what time this is because because there's no time I can see. Then it goes, and if you're seeing thunderstorms like this developing behind this line, this could potentially be tornadic right here. With these individual cells, and this looks like a very intense cell as well. Then you get a lot of these individual cells. You definitely have to elevated tornado risk here. And then it becomes more of a wind threat by this point. And rain, at this point, it kind of looks like just a damaging wind threat. But that's that. And then it kind of just fizzles out by Monday morning, and then it's kind of, all weakened out. And that's pretty much the end of that right there. So we'll take a look at a couple different things. So it does look like some pretty intense wind shear within this line, or ahead of this line. It doesn't look like overly impressive winds, but ahead of this line, I mean, it's there, but it's only around like 30 to 40 knots, so it's not all that impressive, but it is some moderate wind shear in there, so that could definitely elevate the tornado risk. So again, there's potential for, a tornado or two in this, but I don't see anything major happening out of this by any means. Here's the convective available potential energy. There it is right there. Yeah, it is there. It is there. That's why they issued a slight risk of weather. I would say the jackpot would probably be extreme northeastern Texas and portions of west, right along the borderline of northeastern Texas and Oklahoma, within like 50 miles each border. And then it kind of just fizzles out. So it's a very tight window. It's between like Sunday late overnight into the early Monday morning hours, with a very low threat, but it is there. But again, within 100 miles of each radius, within each border. And this could get extended all the way down to portions of at least north central Texas. But when we start seeing these peels, this is a little bit higher of these indexes. It indicates it's elevated. This is your energy available almost. It is there. With that being said, let's take a look at the supercell composite. So yeah, like I mentioned, it looks to be within 100 miles of each radius between the extreme northeastern half of Texas and the extreme western portion of Oklahoma, where we get some very high supercell composites here. So it does look like the supercell composite does exist. I would almost say almost like 100 to 300 miles within each radius, but that's what that looks like, and it does look like it will extend. So again, I think the jackpot is really going to be right in this general area. Yeah, the tornado parameter is not that all that impressive, but as I mentioned, right in this kind of area, right in here, right in this area. The best chance of tornadoes as you're going to see is when you get the individual cells that they set up around where this is indicating of its tornado potential. But again, it doesn't look like an overly significant threat. And then it kind of just fizzles out. It really has nothing to it, honestly. And then the next threat develops, so we'll get into that in just a minute. Alright, so here's the temperatures. Again, the temperatures are obviously important with this, but yeah, 60 to 70 degrees, it's definitely there. I mean, it could be higher, but it is there. Let's see how high these get. Yeah, this is gonna keep your severe threat limited right here. You only get around 50 to 60 degrees, which is like very bare minimum of what you need for severe weather. It doesn't look all that impressive. Alright, now we're going into the threat on Monday into Tuesday, which is kind of a marginal risk of severe weather. But here we go. So again, it looks like Monday into Tuesday. So this starts Monday morning. We get a nice line of thunderstorms again. Your severe weather risk is pretty much over here. It doesn't get extended in portions of central Oklahoma, I believe, but here comes your line of thunderstorms starting to develop very early morning hours on Sunday around 1 a.m. And then it kind of fizzles out, but it does get a little bit more interesting. So it's a very tight window, but it looks like, I don't know the exact timing here, but between like 1 and 7 a.m. if I were to say anything. It looks like more of the gusty winds within this line of thunderstorms. I just don't see anything that would pose a tornado threat. I mean, if you get in, if you get like the rotating cells like it's showing here, but it's kind of, I don't think it would produce a tornado, but I think it's more of a damaging winds right here. Winds here. It is there, so that would definitely promote more, and I wouldn't say elevated tornado risk, but a decent tornado risk. This is Monday and Tuesday. It looks like a very decent severe weather risk. That's the reason why the tornado threat isn't higher, because it just doesn't look all that impressive. But there you go. We get to have the pockets around 40 knot wind gusts. This is higher in the atmosphere. Here's the convective available potential energy. It doesn't look that impressive, I'm going to be honest. Well, there it goes. So this is Monday and Tuesday. It doesn't get impressive until the Monday afternoon hours and Tuesday hours, but I'm pretty sure by then this will thunderstorms is pretty much gone, or it might still be there. I'm not sure. But there could be some pockets of around 1,000 joules per kilogram. Here's a supercell composite. Again, it's going to be a wide area. I'd say the best chance is going to be north central portions, south central portions of Oklahoma and the central parts of Texas. It's going to be kind of like this, kind of a very low, moderate threat. As the other kind of goes like this, very low threat. I think the best chance you're going to see is kind of in the general area that I'm circling, kind of right in this area. If you do see, well, this is the supercell composite, but again, supercell thunderstorms is definitely possible. Here's a significant tornado parameter. This is not all that high, but if you're going to see anything, it's going to be extreme northern parts of Texas and extreme southern Oklahoma. It's going to be kind of in this window right here. Again, around 50 to 100 miles, 100 miles, 50 to 100 miles from about the border of Oklahoma and Texas south, and the border of Texas and Oklahoma around 50 to 100 miles both directions. But as I said, the severe weather threat isn't really there. I don't see much happening here. We'd have to take a look at a different model, but I can definitely see that. Alright, so one thing to know with this, the resolution is going to be quite horrendous. However, this is just the best you can get here. So again, it looks like Monday and Tuesday. You can't really see what's going on here, but some of these heavier showers. I would say a lot of this is just scattered thunderstorms, but the severe weather threat would kind of be limited to kind of this area, right in the heart of central Texas and vastly portions of southern portions of Oklahoma. But again, that's your severe weather risk for both later today, Monday and Tuesday. Again, I think it's a very overall low threat. I think the greatest potential to see any tornadoes is going to be right in between extreme northeastern parts of Texas and extreme western portions of Oklahoma. So here we go. We're going to go in time here through the severe weather threat. So here we go. So again, the threat starts to fire off later in the afternoon hours on Tuesday, potentially even the overnight hours. That's why I don't know if we're going to be live. In the afternoon hours, the line of thunderstorms really starts to fire off. It extends to about the borders of both Kansas and Missouri, Oklahoma and Arkansas, and Texas and Louisiana. And it continues to push off to the east where it becomes a very strong line of thunderstorms. And the thing I'm not seeing with the NAM model here is any chance of tornadoes. I mean, yes, I'm not just going to say no chance, but there's definitely a chance of tornadoes, but I think it's going to be lower since you don't really have any individual cells, but also it's not great quality with this model either. But again, I think it's trying to hint at maybe some isolated individual supercells ahead of this line, but I just can't see it very well because the quality is not that great. So as we continue on to Tuesday night, this threat continues. So honestly, I don't want to say this, but never mind. But again, the heart of the severe weather threat looks to be northern Louisiana, pretty much the entire state of Arkansas, and the entire state of Missouri. But I think northern Missouri is where you cut off from the severe weather threat, just due to the fact that it's not pulling enough moisture from there on, and the temperatures are probably colder. We continue on for Tuesday again. Severe weather risk moves on through southeastern Arkansas, far western portions of Kentucky, extreme western Tennessee, and Mississippi. Sorry. As we continue on through Wednesday, the NAM model wants to kind of pull apart this entire storm system and kind of the severe weather risk would pretty much extend through portions of western Kentucky all the way down to portions of Louisiana. This continues on, and then the threat continues to go. Let's see how things look. It also is indicating at some individual cells here on Wednesday. So it'll be in Alabama and Georgia. And then it kind of a very linear line of storms, a very skinny line of storms. This is your, I think I've seen what a low level jet stream and heavy rain looks like. So it's your squall line here. Cuts back through portions of West Virginia, straight north, southeast, southwest through northern Florida, northwestern Florida. This threat continues on Wednesday, cuts through the southeast, and that's as far as this model will allow us to go. But before we get into the specifics of this severe weather as far as the supercell and all the CAPE indexes and all that stuff goes, I want to get into the temperatures here, because, you know, it's important with severe weather, obviously. So it does look like we'll get decently warm, 60 to near 70, potentially a bit higher, mid-70s in southern Texas and southern Louisiana. And ahead of this line of thunderstorms, it looks like they'll be mainly 50s and pretty much 55 to 65 degrees up and down the coast, up through the southeast, with obviously higher amounts the farther you go south. Dew point, moisture in the air. Ooh, look at that! Wow. So, again, the main severe weather risk seems to be southern Arkansas and pretty much the entire state of Louisiana. We get 60s to near 70 dew points. If we go back, this is why I think the severe weather risk would be limited in portions of northeastern Texas and Oklahoma, just due to the fact that we're not seeing overly impressive dew points. But where you are seeing that line, there's potential dew points around 50 to 55 degrees. Then Tuesday into Wednesday, this is why the severe weather risk will be elevated, because you get dew points 55 to 65 degrees around. Then it really starts to increase Tuesday into Wednesday. 60 to 70, and we could even peak 70 degrees along the coastline of Louisiana. That would not surprise me, because it's not far offshore. We're within like 50 to 100 miles, potentially 150 miles offshore of Louisiana. You're peaking 70 degrees. This is the moisture coming straight out of the Gulf of Mexico. As we continue on, it wants to keep this kind of more centered through central and south central. The farther you go off to the east with this system, Wednesday afternoon at least, or Wednesday morning, sorry. Central, pretty much the entire state of Mississippi gets on it first with dew points 60 to near 70 degrees. The farther you go south, the higher the dew point you get. Continues on 60 to near 70 in central and south central ports of Alabama, and northwestern Florida gets on these dew points as well. We continue on, dew points continue, 60 near 70, pretty much from about the Alabama area on eastward, and then it kind of falls apart. So this is why I think the severe weather risk would actually be kind of, so they had the elevated risk of severe weather, the slight risk of severe weather for Wednesday to Thursday for the coastline of the southeast. Now I think the slight risk of severe weather could get extended a little bit farther south, and the reason I'm saying this is the dew points are a little bit, they have the severe weather risk all the way up to the portions of the mid-Atlantic, which I think will get cut down to pretty much the central parts of North Carolina, just due to the fact that the farther you go off the north, you get into dew points. You're not going to have much of a severe weather risk in portions of the mid-Atlantic as far as Maryland and what is the other state? Delaware. Because you get dew points between 40 and 50 degrees. That's not really good enough for severe weather in a way, but I'd say the best chance is going to be around the central part of Virginia, North Carolina, all the way down south. But I think they'd extend the slight risk of severe weather potentially all the way up through portions of North Carolina. But I think it's cut off right on the border of Virginia and North Carolina, and kind of a marginal risk of severe weather that extends all the way back to portions of. I don't think it would get as far north as Pennsylvania, but potentially as far north as northern parts of north and north central parts of Virginia. But other than that, I don't see this marginal risk of severe weather be extended any farther north unless if the next couple model runs to come through, the next several model runs, the next 24 to 48 hours come through and show a different story. I don't see this slight risk of severe weather get extended all the way up through portions of the Mid-Atlantic and right along the border of Pennsylvania. Potential energy with this thunderstorm risk, or at least the severe weather risk. So here we go. So again, it looks like, it looks fairly significant on the NAM model through central and north central parts of Texas and pretty much central straight through portions of Oklahoma. And then it does get a little more elevated. This is where things get interesting. So right through Arkansas and Louisiana. This continues on through. It stays together surprisingly, but not for long before it kind of just fizzles out. This doesn't go much farther. This goes as far as this. We just can't see anything that goes further than this. But it looks like, as far as now would be, if I were to put a forecast on it, it would be the border lines. This is for the elevated risk, for the intense severe weather risk. Wednesday and Tuesday into Wednesday. It looks like the severe weather risk would be fairly focused through eastern Texas, extreme, and then basically the northeast right through Arkansas, Louisiana, and all the way through Mississippi, Alabama. And I think they may decrease the severe weather risk in portions of Alabama, at least eastern parts of Alabama, down to a marginal risk of severe weather, because it kind of looks like it's going to fall apart the farther you go to the east. So again, I think the slight risk of the enhanced risk of severe weather, and if there would be a moderate risk of severe weather, it would be right between Arkansas and Louisiana, just due to the fact of just how this line is setting up. So, and then we can't really go farther than that. Obviously, moisture, energy is very important for storms, but wind shear is easily just as important. Wind shear is what allows storms to rotate and organize themselves. But it looks like, here we go. So again, out ahead of this storm system, we get 60 to 70 knots with a few pockets of close to the 80 knots. This is through Tuesday into Wednesday. And then that's why the severe weather risk could be a little bit higher. And it looks like this would be a damaging wind threat and a tornado threat right on the coastline of the southeast, 60 to 70 knots. Here's where things get interesting. So here's a supercell composite. So here we go. So again, it looks to me like it's going to be mostly focused right on the Gulf Coast, southern Louisiana. But this is where I think a moderate risk of severe weather could actually get introduced. So I think a moderate risk of severe weather could get introduced through, I'd have to take a look at the severe weather threat again. The severe weather risk really looks to me like it's going to be focused southeastern Texas, Louisiana, and then parts of Arkansas and Mississippi and Alabama. But if I were to put any numbers on it or forecast on it, if there would be it depends on how far north this comes, but what I'm seeing right now, southeastern Texas, South Louisiana, and pretty much the coastline of Louisiana going in with within 100 to 200 miles away from the coastline, it would be the best chance of a tornado or two, or a decent severe supercell activity, but it looks to me like it's going to fall apart once it gets closer to the southeast coastline. Tornado parameter. This looks fairly significant actually, so I can easily see a moderate risk of severe weather getting introduced through northeastern, through about the northeastern corner of Louisiana here, and through pretty much the coast, all borders of southeastern, or at least farther north into northeastern Arkansas, western Tennessee, and western and west central portions of Mississippi. And then it kind of fizzles out by then, but also there's still potential. But if you're going to see any tornadoes, if you're going to see any tornadoes, it's going to be north and north central portions of Louisiana, and then basically through the central part of Arkansas and western Louisiana, western Mississippi, western Tennessee, and through the central part of Alabama. So I know this is already a long video, but I want to go back more into the future and see what things could look like. So with the European model, it wants to show a little bit of a system pouring through the Central Plains and back through the Ohio Valley and Mid-Atlantic, but it kind of wants to slide off the coastline through the 8th and 9th with a nice little storm system movement through the southeast, with maybe a little severe weather. I don't see much happening with that. And then the next big system would be Thursday, with another area of movement developing off the northeast coastline. It looks to be more rain than snow. And then another huge system pulling off through the 17th with a European model. Here's the GFS model. Again, it looks like the same scenario, Central Plains, potentially the Great Lakes region, Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic gets on a little bit of snow and rain. Then another system develops on the south side of it through southeastern, the southeast with maybe a severe weather threat through the 9th, 8th and 9th. And then it looks quiet before we get another system that pulls through to the 12th, and that kind of wants to fizzle out. And then maybe another little system pouring through the northeast with a little bit of light snow, and then another huge system pouring through the 18th. Alright, that's going to do it for this video. Hope you guys did enjoy. If you guys did enjoy, make sure to like the video and subscribe. But yeah, stay safe out there as always, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.